On a morning show today from WRCO, we're going to talk about the Richland Area Food Pantry, and Jerry Bauer is in the studio to do just that. Good morning, Jerry. How are you?
I'm just fine, Phil. Thanks for inviting me.
Good to have you here and talk about the food pantry. It's always a timely topic in our community. I guess maybe we could start out talking a little bit about the last few years. Going back to 2020, was it a little bit of a struggle for the pantry that year?
Right, it was. And of course, the key thing was that the economy essentially got shut down. And one of the regulations was that anybody 60 and older should stay home. Well, you look at the food pantry, that's all of our volunteers. The food pantry would be closed down. But we limped along for a couple of weeks, and then we got things worked out. Interestingly enough, there was a hidden advantage, I guess, in the shutdown, in that grandsons and granddaughters of our volunteers weren't able to work, and so they came and volunteered at the pantry, and so that for a couple of weeks they kept it operating. We operate the food pantry every Wednesday afternoon at the Lighthouse Chapel, and the time for that is at 4 o'clock. It begins the distribution, and at 5:30 they cut off the distribution. They serve whoever is in line at that time, but they don't allow any additional people to come in. And it's a long day for our volunteers. It start around 8 or 9 in the morning, and it's oftentimes at 6 or 6:30, and sometimes even later by the time they get done.
I think one of the positive things that did come from COVID, though, is, the drive-through and some of those things that actually worked out for you, didn't it?
That's right. And interestingly enough, one of the problems with the drive-through is you get the information out in the parking lot. How do you get it to the volunteers inside so that they can prepare the food and get it out to the right car and that sort of thing? It turned out that we had a few, I'll call them tech geniuses, and they got to work on trying to make an electronic registration system, so we could, and it took a few months to work the bugs out of it, but it's going splendidly now, and we can gather a great deal of information through the system, and we keep track of every one of our clients and how often they come, and once in a while we do some surveys and find out how they feel about the pantry. And so just recently we did a survey where we asked them if there were things that they thought they could use more of that we didn't seem to have, and we also asked them if there was anything that there was too much of, that they got too much. And interestingly enough, mac and cheese was one of the things that they mentioned that there was too much of.
Really? Okay.
Really. And things that were in short supply as far as the clients were concerned were meat and eggs, dairy and eggs, and that's understandable because Second Harvest even has been having trouble getting some of those things.
Could you take a look at some of the numbers for our audience? Because I know that usage has been up at the Richland Area Food Pantry, hasn't it?
Yes, I can. This is comparing 2022 to 2023. And in 2022, we served 2,555 families or cars. And in 2023, we served 3,475 families. That was a 36% increase. I've got numerical dyslexia.
Yeah, I do too sometimes. But those numbers are up, and I'm guessing 2024 is probably in that same range.
Yes, we're ahead. It's not as larger, as dramatic as those numbers. But through 8 months, we're up about another 11 or 12%. In terms of the operation of the pantry, in 2022 through March, we were serving about 50 to 55 families every week, and that was certainly very doable, and we could handle that very well. And then things really started to kind of kick in, and people started to come to the pantry, and before we knew it, we were serving 72 families per week. And so that was almost, 4 pantries, and then you've got another pantry in there if you look at it in terms of the actual numbers. And sometimes people ask us, well, what is the reason that the numbers are up so much? And we say, well, it's just that people perhaps have been living right on the edge of their paychecks, and inflation and some other things have happened, or somebody gets sick and can't work for a while, and it just tips them over. And that's the kind of information that we're able to get from the check-in system and talking to people, and it's amazing. But every week there are some people who register to use the food pantry, and they tell us that, well, years ago we were regulars, and we were able for a long time, for a few years, to be able to get along ourselves, but we can't do it anymore. We just kind of got tipped over the edge. In terms of inflation, I want to mention, before I forget to do it, that the food pantry will not be supplying holiday meals this year at Thanksgiving and at Christmas. We started way back in the summer looking for hams and turkey breasts, and we shopped and shopped and shopped, and we got some pretty spiffy shoppers among our volunteers, and they just could not find a supply that we could afford, quite frankly. And indeed, at our recent Board of Directors meeting, we've decided that we have to begin to try to cut back on our food expenses, because we're getting to the edge of our budget as well. And so we have to try to be responsible and stay open for people. And so that's one of the things we're going to do is begin to cut back on things, and we've set a goal of trying to reduce our expenditures by around $500 a month until we reach a number that we think is responsible, and yet one that allows us to supply needed food to the community.
This time of year, with people kind of putting all their garden produce, and canning and freezing and things like that. And also, we always get the question here at the studio, Jerry, about venison, too. Do you take donations for those kind of things?
Yes, we will certainly accept the venison, and the Richland Locker works with us on that, and so they process the venison, of course, and they allow us to store the frozen venison at the locker, which is very handy sometimes. Sometimes we're able to store it ourselves. We've got some room that's been allocated to us at the locker, and that's been very helpful over the years. Mm-hmm. And so it's a nice working relationship.
If somebody has veggies and things like that, what should they do? That's right.
They can bring those in on vegetables. Best to just bring them in on Wednesday, which is the day of the pantry. You can come in the door and go out the door in the afternoon, and somebody can enjoy them.
Recently, we had guests on from the Richland area Rotary Lights in the Park.
Mm-hmm.
And yes. I know the food pantry benefits from their donations, people that visit that and donate too, right?
That is correct. And there are others beside the Rotary Lights. We have a few big donors, big contributors, usually organizations, and we certainly appreciate that.
Sometimes, unfortunately, we only think about the food pantry maybe at holiday times and things like that. But there's a need all year, isn't there?
That's correct.
Some things coming up here toward the last few months of the year. Anything you'd like to add, Jerry, today in your visit about the food pantry?
Oh, well, one of the things that we've done at Second Harvest Request Direction is that we've taken and figured out the cost of a cart full of food. How much does a meal cost that you get from the food pantry? And the number that we came up with tells us that in 2020 and 2021, each cart that went out, every meal that was in that cart was worth $7. What we found was in 2023, when we did a survey again, that cost had gone up to $10.37. And so that means that we were up $3.37 per meal. Multiply that times the number of clients, and we're talking about a little over $33,000 of additional expense that we have, and that has continued.
That's amazing. You don't think about it adding up that fast, but it truly does, doesn't it?
It does, and
it's probably not going to go down anytime soon.
No, it certainly probably will not. And Second Harvest is struggling along with the rest of the food banks. And, of course, where we deal in hundreds and thousands of dollars, they deal in millions of dollars. And they're finding that grants are becoming scarcer. They're harder to qualify for, more difficult to get. And so Second Harvest has had to increase some of its handling fees, and it has had to initiate some new handling fees as well for some of the commodities. We know, for example, that at the beginning of the coming year, they will be charging a handling charge for eggs and for milk. And they've apologized, but they just said, we just can't carry it ourselves anymore. And so it's interesting that the things that the clients thought that we needed more of to distribute are the very things that are very difficult to get and expensive.
So give us the hours for the Richland community, the area food pantry, and then the Second Harvest. They're two different things. I think sometimes people get those confused.
Well, that's right. And the Richland Community Food Pantry at the Lighthouse Chapel is every Wednesday afternoon from 4 o'clock to 5:30. And we ask that people not come way too early and plug up the parking lot. And we also staff from some of our volunteers the mobile food pantry, which is held on the third Thursday of the month at the fellowship. And now that school is back in session, why you have to wait until, well, it's usually about 3:15, maybe as late as 3:30 before cars are allowed to come up the hill to the building and to pick up the food.
Such an important thing for our community, and
that is correct.
Hopefully, people remember these organizations as we head toward the holidays too. If there's any giving or things you want to do at the end of the year, too.
That's right, and the bulk of our donations come in the last 4 months of the year, September through December. And I guess it's just the giving season because that's when the holidays are, and you've got Christmas and you've got Thanksgiving, and you are reminded that sometimes you are very fortunate and, quite frankly, better off than some other people, and that may cause you to want to make a donation. And we certainly will be happy to receive that. You would just make the check out to the Richland Community Food Pantry and put that on the envelope, and then it's 345 South Cairns Avenue in Richland Center, of course.
Great. We hope a lot of people will do that. And you could always use volunteers, too, couldn't you?
Yes, we can, although we are well-staffed right now.
Are you? Okay.
And so we have a bit of a waiting list of people that want to volunteer, and we just currently don't have an opening. We need about 35 people to run the pantry each Wednesday. And we have just very faithful people. We've been told by outsiders that is one of the outstanding things about our pantry is that they said, you've got professional volunteers. These people treat this just as a job, and they're here every week and ready to go. And if they have to be away, most times they arrange for somebody else to come in and take their task and to do it. And it really is very smooth. It's not very often that we're shorthanded, but it does happen once in a while. Usually when some kind of flu bug or something like that's going around.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
Unfortunately,
yeah,
it tells us that something else is happening in the community.
You're one of the few organizations that's been in recently that said you have enough volunteers, though, and there's a waiting list, because that
is right.
You're lucky. You're very fortunate. So.
Yes, we are. Yes, we are. And
no doubt. Anything else you'd like to add today, Jerry?
No, I think we've just covered the things that I wanted to cover. I will stress that we would sure appreciate some contributions, and that would give us even maybe a little bit of a cushion so we're not as close to the edge from week to week and month to month. So far, so good. We're able to continue to operate.
Well, it's a real blessing for our community, and thanks for doing what you do, too, Jerry.
Thank you, too.
You bet. Jerry Bauer joining us on the morning show talking about the Richland Community Food Pantry.